My job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from and what they are into and what is already there, and just to bring it out. This is what compels me to compel them, and I will do it by whatever means necessary.
Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about healing our intimacy disorders, unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first ourselves and then others. Every episode, we will talk about advice you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow in your self-worth. I'm Sheena Lachey, Love Addiction Coach and Trauma Specialist. Let's begin. All right. So today on the podcast, I have the Dr. Piper Grant. Hi, Dr. Piper. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Sheena. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you are here with us. You have been one of my favorite people for forever. We go way back in these therapy streets, and you are phenomenal at what you've done. Between educating women on their sexual health and pleasure and getting in touch with their bodies, to betrayal trauma, and now mother hunger and mother wounds. And I've always admired you as a person, as a mother, as a clinician, and I'm just so happy I get to introduce my audience to you.
Well, thank you. That touches me, and that has been a journey, and we have been on that journey together. We have been in this together for a while. So even when you say that back to me, I'm like, damn, that is for real. That has been but here we are, and we're still here, and we're still doing the work, and I love the work. So thank you. I'm so happy we get to be in this exchange together and all those different parts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those who do not know you, can you introduce yourself and what you do? Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Before we get started, let's take a small break to say thank you to this week's sponsors. So there's someone in your life that you know you need to let go of, but you're too afraid that once you will, he or she will magically change. You're fearful that they will find someone else and that you'll be stuck alone, or that they'll be happier without you. And so you're frozen, not making a change, not knowing if you are doing the right thing or if you're wasting your time. I absolutely get it. It can be so hard to let go of or even just shift and adjust relationships that mean the world to you. Where do you balance keeping true to yourself while also making sure that the relationships you have are those that benefit you? In my signature program, The Recovery School, I help you overcome this fear that keeps you stuck so that you can actually move forward by either cutting ties or creating boundaries in this relationship. In this program, I combine group coaching, attachment and therapeutic support, and clear actionable plans to help you finally break these patterns and grow in your self-worth. Learn more and get started today at therecoveryschool.com. Again, that is therecoveryschool.com. Stop sacrificing your happiness and start speaking up for what you want and the love that you deserve today.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Piper Grant. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. A little bit like Sheena said, my focus has been primarily within the realm of sexuality. Within that, I've had some different seasons, but always really just focusing on the person and who they are in terms of their sexual wellness, whether that be as an individual, in relationship, or even within community and systems in which they exist in. Ironically or not ironically or interestingly enough, when we're talking about sexuality and sexual wellness, so much of it comes back to our early intimate relationships, and our early intimate relationships are those in which we are with our parents. And so in the last, even through my own, I'm fully transparent. The first time I was introduced to the term mother hunger was in my own therapy, looking at my own toxic relationships and love avoidant issues, more for me, but more like kind of that pendulum of the love addiction, love avoidant issues. And I was introduced to the mother hunger term, I would say 10 years ago. Kelly McDaniel came out with Ready to Heal ages ago. And so as the life would have it and the journey would have it, I actually am now a trained mother hunger facilitator, trained by Kelly McDaniel for well over, she kind of took a few of us under her wing and mentored us and trained us. And so now my work, amongst other things, is really working with women on understanding and healing that mother wound, that mother hunger, and really getting to bear witness to how actually when we bring healing and change to that part of us, it transforms all relationships in our lives. It's magical almost, actually.
No, that's amazing. And I'm very excited to have you come and talk about it because, to your point, Kelly has been able to conceptualize mother wounds and mother trauma in a way that's really unique and distinct, especially for those of us who identify as sex and love addicts, right? So let's start, I guess, from the top. What is mother hunger? Or even, yes, I'll start there. What
Yeah.
is mother hunger?
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to start because in the last few years, I don't know if you felt this, but like there has been this kind of social awareness around the mother wound, I guess you would say in general. But Kelly really came out with this term. She really developed and created a framework around this term, mother hunger. And so what she identified is actually that there's no real good definitions for mother. Like we don't, if you literally, if you look in the dictionary, it's like to bear a child and raise them. And for anybody who is a mother and or a child of a mother, there's so much more that is involved in mothering. And so we can talk a little bit about what is like how to define what mother is. But what she came to see is that there is this hunger, literally like a insatiable hunger sometimes for the mother when the mother is unable or has not provided nurturance, guidance, and or protection. And so we can go through our life if we had a dysfunctional, difficult, traumatic, and or absent relationship with a mother, we have this wound, if we kind of want to put it like that, in which feels almost like a hunger pain. You know, there is this needing, this desiring to fill something. And I think any of us that, if anybody's listening and they resonate with the word mother hunger, we usually have it. I share with some of even friends around mother hunger and they're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, that's cool, babe. You don't have it. Like if you don't get it, you didn't have it. But if you get it, you're like, shit, I know what that is. And it's, yeah, that it's just that pang inside of you of seeking without knowing that actually what you are seeking is repair around the wound of the mother.
I think that seeking without knowing what it is that you're seeking is really important. Because I think about, one of the things I talk about here on the podcast a lot is anyone who's been in an addictive or trauma bonded relationship with someone is really important to look at, is it actually that person that you're over attached to or what that person represents? What are the resources, the feelings, the connections that you're hoping that that person could give you? And did that pain start deeper? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if we look at it, and if I was to just like dilute it and use some terms, right? Mother hunger is a developmental trauma. So, exactly to what you're saying, I would agree. It's like when we are either in a traumatic experience, and also if you think about it as like happening at a younger developmental age, right? There's no words, language, framework, understanding around it. So then we're older and we're walking through life and we're like living and existing in all of these things, but we actually don't know. We're not aware. Not that we don't know. We're just kind of maybe not conscious at that point of like where these actions or behaviors are stemming from.
So what are some signs that we may be operating out of our mother hunger that we are not aware of?
Really good question. So I'm going to start, and I kind of had alluded to this before. I'm going to define how, I'm going to use the definition of mother that basically Kelly also sees, and it's kind of her three pillars of mother hunger. So that a mother duty or role is to provide three things: nurturance, protection, and guidance. You might have lacked, anyone listening might have lacked in any of those three: nurturance, protection, and guidance. They might have lacked in all three of them, or maybe just two of them. Can I define a little bit of kind of what those, great. Okay. So nurturance is the idea of to nurture, right? It's like, it actually comes from early like idea of like the suckling. And it's so interesting because in my work, when I talk to women about nurturing, for somebody listening, they might be like, oh, I know exactly what nurturance is. And for other women, when I work with them and I'm like, how do you nurture yourself? Like what feels nurturing to you? And it's not uncommon that people are like almost at loss with that and or have a difficult relationship with receiving and or giving themselves nurturance. So nurturance is that idea of taking care and providing nurture, sustenance. Then we have guidance, and that's providing direction. It's to guide, right? It's to provide direction and feedback and advice of how to be. And protection is allowing there to be, and protection is giving safety, and it's to protect. So when we want to identify if we're like acting out of a place of our mother hunger wound, if we kind of want to put it like that, what you want to really identify is like, am I coming from a place of sacrificing myself, which would be a nurturance, right? Like, am I not taking care of myself? Am I coming from a place of not protecting myself, or am I providing inappropriate guidance for myself? And the reason why that's a good starting place is because what you do is you kind of start assessing your 3 pillars of mother hunger. And you're like, am I coming from a place of health in those places, or am I coming from a place of unhealthy in those places? Now, I'm going to say the tricky thing about mother hunger is it's not always, well, we're on this podcast, so we can talk, we're going to talk about this. It's like, it's not always direct with that. It often comes out in sex. It often comes out in love. It often comes out in relationship. It often comes out in even relationship with shopping, food, things like that. Because like I said earlier, the mother relationship is the first intimate relationship that we have. And that, by the way, I think this also becomes complex when we start talking about adoption and we start talking about surrogacy as well. But I'm solely talking about, was there a person who was mother to you, who looked at you, who held you, who you trusted, that provided guidance for you, you know, that you felt nurtured by and protected by? I just had this feeling, sorry, I just want to know, I think sometimes when we talk about this, if a woman's listening to this and this feels a little bit heavy, because what we do is we start talking about it and we start realizing, whoa, maybe I didn't get all of that. So if somebody's listening to it and it feels heavy, take a pause and, you know, nurture yourself, guide yourself, and know that it feels heavy right now, or protect yourself from that. I just want to say that because I just felt that as I was saying that. But what you come to realize is that, like, then because there might be this broken intimate relationship with mother and or didn't receive all that one needs from mother, when we move into other intimate relationships, such as with a partner, could be work colleagues, it could be friends, we don't know how to be in those relationships in a healthy way. And so we find that there might be toxic cycles, and that's where we find love addiction comes in, and also love avoidance comes in as well.
Okay, great. That was a lot of great information. So nurturance, the 3 pillars being nurturance, protection, and guidance. Nurturance, were you comforted? Were you attended to? Were you cared for? Was there softness and care? Protection, were you defended from harm and kept in safety? Guidance, I think I may have missed what is the purpose of a mother when it comes to guidance?
It's almost like a role model. Purpose of mom as guidance is a role model, you know? And the thing is, by the way, with guidance, you can have protection and nurturance and lack guidance. But one does not usually receive guidance unless they feel protected. Like, I'm not going to look up to somebody unless I feel like they actually have my back, you know, as a child. So, yeah, but you can lack just one of them, 2 of them, and or all 3 of them.
So you could have protection and nurturance. If you have protection and nurturance, it's less likely that you may be missing guidance as well.
Sorry, if you're lacking protection, you're most likely not going to have guidance either.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're lacking protection, thank you for the clarification. Yeah. If you're lacking protection, you're most likely not going to have guidance, because if someone's not keeping you safe, you're also probably not going to be taking guidance from them.
Yeah. Well. I mean, you're in survival mode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so many levels to that too.
Can you say more?
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens particularly, and because I do a lot of group work for women with mother hunger, and I think this happens kind of in any group work in which we're either talking about addiction or trauma as well. It's like people are like, ooh, mine is less than the other person. And I'd like to say like, no, it's just for it's what happened to you and that has impacted you and that's all that matters. And so I'd like to also say like, you know, when we talk about protection, for instance, it could be that a woman feels like she was unprotected because her mom knew that she was being sexually abused and didn't step in and do anything, right? To a girl who was growing up and felt like comments were made around her by her family or something, and her mom, you know, didn't protect her, didn't say anything, didn't have her back. So I just say like, but that's still for that little girl, whether whatever side that is, it's still like, man, I don't feel like my mom had me, you know, I don't feel like she could protect me. So there's a whole range in that too.
You know, what comes up for me as you say that is Pia Melody's work, who's another pioneer in love addiction. And one of the things that she teaches in her model is all the different types of needs that we have as children, right? And so, you know, she'll talk about physical comfort, emotional comfort, and all the stuff that we kind of think about. But I remember learning that one of the things that she teaches is educational support and educational guidance. And I remember looking at that, just being like, one, whoever thinks about education as being a need that's provided. But in talking about it and learning about it, it is, do you have someone who's there who is intentional about teaching you how to tie your shoes, teaching you how to perform basic hygiene, teaching you how to put on makeup if that's something that fits for you, teaching you how to write a check, teaching you how to do homework after school? Or is this a place that you have been neglected and just left to kind of figure it out, right? And there are so many different ways, there's so many different areas of provision that if we did not have access to something that I'm sure you've seen with your clients too, either you become needless and wantless, or you try to convince yourself that you never needed it in the first place, or the fact that you need it, you're being too much, that you should just learn to figure it out by yourself, that you should just push it down. And you almost kind of have to learn how to gaslight yourself to minimize those needs because you've had to go your whole life without having them, right? And also, true to form, because this has been how you've been groomed to be in the world, not only do you have these first relationships that treated you this way, you have a whole list of people afterwards who reinforce that. So now it's not like, yeah, my mom treated me this way, but this person treated me this way, and this teacher treated me this way, and these exes treated me this way. So you're telling me that I can have more and I can believe for more, but that's not been my experience. It's not safe. And every time I try, I get disappointed.
Yeah. Yes. To all of it. I mean, also super familiar with Pia's work. I love her because she's just like no bullshit. Like she's just like absolutely like I love her stuff and I love her. But I think exactly that. I love that you highlight like also looking at the educational component because it's such a nice example to show that we don't think about all these different parts that go into raising a child. And then, as you say, as an adult, to consider, gosh, was I lacking in any of these areas? And then absolutely leading to it being needless, leading to being needless, wantless, and or, basically gaslighting ourselves. I would absolutely agree with you on that. And I think that's one of, I don't know if you feel like this, but this is what, that to me is actually one of the hardest things in this work to come up against is that there has been, for many people, this long history that is quote unquote confirming for them this belief system. And so when you're sitting there as a clinician and you're like, yeah, there is potential for it to be different. There is other types to ways to communicate, other ways to be in relationship, other ways to feel like, I understand how scary, I personally understand one, how scary that is for the client to hear that, but also like, that's really freaking unknown. Like there's no model for that many times.
Right. Well, I was actually just about to ask you though.
Is there a model?
As you can. When you have a client in front of you who has reached this place where she's at the crux of believing that there is more, but because of what we've already shared, it feels impossible for her to cross that threshold. how do you help her, or what does the process look like usually for a client to get from that lack of belief to actually walking in it and owning it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or even for yourself, if you feel open to share, as this is a journey it sounds like you've been on yourself too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really a strong believer in like micro achievements and micro successes. And I think for me personally, and also like in the way that I approach this work with women, is that it feels like, oh my gosh, now we need to look for radical change in the type of partnership that I'm finding, and I need to find radical change in the way I'm engaging in, friendships. Because again, I'm looking at all intimate relationships. Mother hunger impacts all types of intimate relationships. And I'm a believer that like slow it down. Like let's just find like micro places where you're able to have voice. And I'll use an example from I'll use an example is that like I've had clients, for instance, and in this way is like they hired somebody to come over and help them in their garden. And when the person came over and gave them a quote and was just kind of like blowing them off for the first time ever, this woman said, actually, I don't think that this relationship, this service is going to work. Whoa. Like I'd actually I get a little bit teary eyed because I mean, that was a massive, massive thing. And I think that can sound like small to somebody like, okay, so you told somebody that like this, quote unquote, working relationship doesn't work. But it's like, we're talking about when we've grown up either with a mother or within a system in which we were not believed in and or given space to have our voice, or told our voice was less than, or told our voice was wrong, or told, whatever it is, our voice feels very small. Mm. And so to the point, back to your question, I say start with little things and start with insignificant people and events. That's my biggest thing. Little things, insignificant people and events.
There. Yeah.
I love a good story. Whether it's Issa Rae giving a modern yet hilarious depiction of what it looks like to be a young Black woman navigating love and relationships in America, or Toni Morrison beautifully weaving the most majestic stories of the Black experience of pain, growth, identity, culture. A good story is not only healing, but it connects us to those who are influencing our culture and moving it forward for the better. The next generation of influential Black voices can be found on NPR's new collection, Black Stories, Black Truths. Black Stories, Black Truths is a celebration of Blackness from NPR. Each of NPR's Black voices are as distinct, varied, and nuanced as the Black experience itself. In the Black Stories, Black Truths collection, you'll hear stories of joy, resilience, empowerment, and creating world-shifting things out of struggle. Every episode is a living account about what it means to be Black today, told from a unique Black perspective. From Bobby Shmurda to The Wire, Michelle Obama to reparations, there's no limit to the range of Black stories, Black truths. Black perspectives haven't always been centered in the telling of America's story. Now they are the story. In NPR's Black Stories, Black Truths, you'll find a collection of some of NPR's best podcast episodes celebrating the Black experience. Hear a feed of episodes from across NPR's podcasts that center Black voices. It's NPR Noir. Turn on NPR today and hear a range of voices as varied, nuanced, and Black as the country we reflect. Stories should never be about us, without us. Listen now to Black Stories, Black Truths from NPR, wherever you get your podcasts. When healing from an intimacy disorder, one of the first things you have to do right after getting clear on your patterns of addictive behaviors, avoidant behaviors, and living in deprivation is clearing out the roots that caused it. Clearing out the experiences, the traumas, the narratives that have kept you stuck all of these years. In my signature coaching program, The Recovery School, you have the opportunity to reveal the sources of low self-worth, to learn about how old roles in your family have resulted in codependency, shutting down, and not letting others in. And also to learn how to talk to and connect to your inner child in a way that is soothing and healing. This is the next step to reframing the old stories that have plagued you for years to evolve to being a healed and loved woman and having access to the love and the relationships and self-worth that you've always wanted. Learn more and get started by going to therecoveryschool.com. Again, that is therecoveryschool.com.
So when I think about Black women and the type of trauma, according to the 3 pillars that you listed, under mother hunger, protection, nurturance, guidance, I think protection is the biggest one. Protection and feeling unprotected from I was about to say almost every source, but maybe every source, every different corner, from parents to society to church to everything else. And so if I'm going to look at nurturance, someone not tending to me, caring for me, soothing me, comforting me, that is something that I can imagine in my healing journey. It may be hard, but I can learn how to start to practice more self-acceptance and self-compassion and self-soothing and guidance. Same thing with guidance. I can go on my Googles. I can hire a coach. I can do all these other things, but self-protection, feeling very exposed and vulnerable. If I'm sitting in an office or sitting talking with someone and talking about how I've never felt protected by anyone or anywhere, what is it that you say to that person? How can someone who is experiencing real trauma and danger and needs to go out into a world that may have trauma and danger, how does she start to feel protection?
Yeah, I am really happy that we came here because I wrote this paper. I started writing this paper and I actually wanted to present it at one of the conferences that you and I are familiar with on the intersectionality of race and mother hunger. It's something that I've been really interested in, and I actually don't think it's in the conversations of mother hunger particularly. I think it's in the conversations of kind of mother wound, but it's not really talking about what you are really referencing is the intersectionality, not just like the mother wound. And now I'm like a Black woman or a woman of color living in the world. It's like how these come together. I think the idea around protection is very real. I think for me, what I sit there and think about is what either brings her, what either is a sense of space, place, or brings a sense of safety. Because the reality is like the world is not safe. The world is not going to protect, right? And I think it's not to invalidate that. I think it's actually harmful to say, how do you, okay, let's like bring in how do you like protect yourself and to like empower her and or like falsely kind of convince her, I guess, that the world is going to be on her side. I think we have to be real. And so it's really looking at what is the sense of protection in your body. Where are those spaces for you? Because I'm thinking more about nervous system regulation at that point. Because when we're talking about existing and living in a world and living a life in which you feel unprotected, your nervous system is so shot and the cortisol levels are so high. And so what I think about is not like, okay, let's falsify that the world is safe, but rather, is there spaces, places, and people in which you can allow your nervous system to regulate? And what do you do when you're in those spaces? Can you actually allow yourself to take that in? That might be in your bath at the end of the day. Literally, that's somebody that I've worked with. She's like, I just feel safe in my bathtub at the end of the day when my kids are in bed. And I'm like, great. Okay. So when you do that, can you allow that to be part of your, like, can you bring that into your body? What does that feel like in your body? And can you give yourself that gift of just feeling protected and nurtured, actually, for her at that moment, protected and nurtured in those moments, knowing that you will still have to get up out of your bath, get out of your bathroom, and you're going to walk back into a life that feels really difficult for you. But can you give yourself your nervous system just that? And again, I guess I work in micro. I mean, now I'm saying this out loud to you. I think it's about microdosing protection, essentially.
Yeah.
How does that sound to you? I'm curious.
Yeah. I was actually just going to add to that. So when I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The bottom level is, the security, food, shelter, and all that stuff, right? And then the highest level, the self-optimization and everything. And until your most basic bottom line needs are met, that higher stuff is impossible. Yeah. So even a bubble bath, right, is really hard. So to your point, dealing with the real trauma and triggers of the world, which is it is unsafe. So what I would tell to folks listening, if it applies to you or if you find this helpful, is in line with this, is the first step is to eliminate connection to people who are unsafe for you.
Absolutely agree.
So identifying signs of unavailability, signs of people who are abusers, signs of people who are neglectful, signs of people who are repeating the same trauma that you've gone through before, and stop, one, giving those people chances, stopping, two, trying to fix them up, trying, three, to try to be their confidants and their good influences. But to start to prioritize you and your safety being of utmost importance. Something I've said on this podcast a lot, especially when it comes towards those who may be looking for partnership, is to go towards where you're loved. Don't worry about people who can't see the value in you, or people who are fighting with you. That is a waste of time and energy. But only to go towards the people and places and spaces that you're loved, and eliminate the people who are not. And once you're doing that, you are able to, or actually what that includes too, is being in your body. So it's not just, if you're only kind of looking at a list of what someone says is dangerous or not. If you've been in danger your whole life, this is how we can be in a room of 100 people and find the one person who's going to hurt us again, because our nervous system has been so attuned to, this is what my trauma looks like. This trauma matches my mom or my daddy. I don't know that it does, but this is who I'm attracted to. Once I start to figure out what does it feel like in my body when these type of people and these types of relationships are around, what kind of dopamine hit does it give me, what kind of adrenaline rush, what kind of fear or pain, and also where that is in my body. Now I'm attuned to it, and now I know what that means. So anytime I have these type of people around me, I use that as my sign to, it's time for me to exit. And me paying attention to these types of sensations in my body gives me full body awareness. So now, once I can start to pinpoint what danger feels like, I can more easily pinpoint pleasure, and I can pinpoint sadness, and I can pinpoint grief, and I can pinpoint happiness and my sensuality. And it starts to turn my body on. And the more I'm around people who I can co-regulate with, people who are safe for me, the more I can lean into being myself, and the more I can center myself. And then I can start to do more, if I'm not already, more of the nurturance and more of the guidance and safety and protection. But it may mean that some of us need to leave relationships or people that we've been clinging to for a while, hoping that they can get on board, because it's actually contributing to our sense of feeling unsafe, waiting for them to catch up.
I also think that what happens though is when we get to talking about mother, it becomes very difficult for people to think about detaching. Sometimes some people are totally estranged, and or have gotten to the place where they are, or mom was absent, or they've gotten to the place where they've decided space and cut off is what they need. Because I would totally agree with you. I think it is identifying all of that, like somatically where we get pinged, then being able to identify, okay, this is actually either familiar for me because it's toxic, and or is good for me almost because it's unfamiliar, in kind of those moments, right? What I find though is that it's difficult then when we talk about the mom, because there is an inherent loyalty that some people have because they feel like it is my mother, and or that is not even just them. Maybe their family is putting that on them. Culture is putting that on them. Their church is putting that on them, like those that they admire maybe or look up to. So I think that's also actually to the point, that practice of kind of coming back into the body, knowing where you can find safety and or not safety, putting in practices around mom that, like for instance, some people, holidays, let's talk about holidays, they'll just go and still have a Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, or a holiday dinner with their mom. If their mom is triggering for them, what safety plans do they have in place afterwards? What do they do when they leave? Do they go find people that love them and feel good to them and feel safe to them, or spaces that feel safe to them, and protected, and nurturing? So I think this inherent loyalty that often people have to the mother makes it difficult sometimes in this conversation about creating space. Even though, I'm going to be honest, sometimes I'm like, this is a relationship that you should not, like, why are you going to go see your mom? Like, no, it like triggers you and you're like falling apart for 3 weeks afterwards. Like, no. there is an inherent loyalty sometimes, though, and that needs to sometimes be dismantled as well.
Yeah. I think that's all true. I've absolutely seen that with people of all backgrounds, no matter where their lineage or folks are from. I mean, it even goes back to your original definition of mother hunger, talking about that craving and almost that desperation and that high need for a mother wound. I think for a mother relationship with your mother. I think what I was kind of hitting on too, though, with that, with like that extended explanation of like protection and everything, just talking it out is there is such, speaking of intersection, there's such an intersection of where the mother wound, talking about what it represents in our everyday life, is so integrated in all relationships. So Absolutely. If I'm going to talk about my mother wound, as much of as great as it would be to be able to just isolate, okay, I'm focusing on mother wound right now. For me to unravel that, it does include my relationship with men, especially Black men. It includes at the same time I need to unravel my relationship with society, and I need to unravel my relationship with my body and sexuality. And so I guess I just want to say, no matter where anyone is in this process, if once you start down this road, it's hard for you to single out one trauma because they're all intertwined, then that is normal. Because, which is, the reason why I started Black Girls Heal, because I started, I started with Love Junkie.
Yeah.
And as which was a podcast for sex and love addicts of all nationalities, all genders and everything, and filled my therapy practice with Black women who were sex and love addicts. And there was all this stuff about trauma, for family trauma and childhood trauma, but nothing that talked about trauma that happens distinctly for Black people and especially Black women. Because of what I just said, we can't isolate one thing because of how it impacts us. And so I think this is just another example of that, and
Absolutely.
How it needs to be more talked about. Go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, that's kind of when I agree with you, is that it can't be separated. And that's why even in this conversation specifically about the intersectionality of being a Black woman and having mother hunger, I think is really important because it is integrated. I don't even think it's an intersectionality, it's integrated. I think what's interesting for me, as a clinician working with women from various cultures, what I find particularly for Black women is that, versus like, I'm just going to say like a white woman, is that where I see the mother hunger wound also gets really activated is thinking about conversations and or observations of their mother and learning how to be a Black woman in American society and messaging around that and ideas around that, versus white women have no context or even conversation about that. Like when that's nowhere even in their work necessarily. And again, I don't think that you can separate that, because then when you're talking to a woman, whether or not you're talking about mother hunger, although this is where it's referencing, is that when you're talking to a Black woman and you're working with Black women and you talk about like, how did you learn about being a woman? And this is, how did you learn about being a woman? What did you learn about being a Black woman? And if we're talking about American society, I work internationally, as you know, so that's kind of why I keep mentioning that. There's so much story and learning and trauma as well at times in that. And so when we are talking about mother hunger, for Black women particularly, that you cannot separate that. There is learning from mom that sometimes also doesn't fit for them either, and or observing of mom that doesn't fit for them either.
Yeah. All the lessons that are said and unsaid from all these different sources definitely come together. So what is, I know we're coming to the end of time, but what is, this may be a silly question, but what is the goal of healing mother hunger? How would someone know that they're on the other side of it? And that might be within the answers of protection, nurturance, and guidance. But yeah, what's the goal?
I pause on that question because I almost feel like it's different for everybody. Um, it makes me think about what's the goal of also healing from any type of love addiction or even any developmental trauma. I would say when I'm thinking about my work, it's to be free of the burden and the stories and the shame that is not ours, that is carried from our parents, you know? And again, I'll speak to it personally. Like, while I've done a lot of healing and work in and around the relationship with my mom, man, there are times where like I'll see her and I mean, I think I physically change. I think people probably around me even see me like, you know, and there are times I'm better at that, and there are times that I'm worse at that, you know, like, or managing around that. So I think it's an ongoing process. We always change through the life. We're always changing through the lifetime. And so whether mom is present and or not in your life, the relationship with the mother is always going to be changing. When women have children, mom stuff comes up. When women become grandmas, mom stuff comes up. When they get married, when they decide not to have children, all of this stuff. So, you know, the goal I think is to be able to, live freely of that which is not ours. And I see that even in my relationship with my mom. I have to be like, well, that is her stuff, that is her story, that is hers. And it is not mine, and it does not need to activate me, and it does not need to, be mine anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think about my relationship with my first therapist, who I always talk about how much I loved him and helped me so much. Once, how I knew it was time for me to leave and how he ended up discharging me as a client. And it was a good discharge. But he was like, you don't need me anymore. But one of the signs was that I started to trust myself more. I didn't need to, field opinions for it. I didn't need to get permission for what I thought. You know, I have a thought about I wasn't even able to think about what I actually wanted. So I needed to source opinions from other people. Then once I was able to think about what I wanted, then I needed to ask other people what they thought just to kind of get a vote. And then once I knew what I wanted, I didn't really need a vote. I just needed to say it out loud to somebody before I went with it. And then I was like, why am I involving all these middlemen? I'm just going to do what I want to do. And if I want to tell them, I'll tell them. So once I started to move to this place of self-trust and building that relationship with myself, which is the most important relationship versus all the other voices and all the other people, then that's when it was time for me to move on. That's when I graduated. That was the goal. And to your point, that doesn't mean that you don't ever not need guidance or you reach this place of perfection, but you have yourself, which you didn't have before, which is huge.
I love that. I'm smiling so hard. Obviously, no one sees this in the interview, but like, because I'm just thinking in the context of mother hunger, I'm like, that is guidance right there. Like, absolutely. And I don't know if you have a mother wound. I don't know what that is, but that would all speak to absolutely guidance in the healing journey of being able to guide yourself. You got yourself. And yeah, like you said, it doesn't mean that we don't check in with people. It's not, it's not like I've got myself and forever don't need somebody to nurture me, protect me, or guide me. It's just like I am okay with myself and happy to receive from others. And that is a really beautiful thing to be able to get there. I smile so hard when you tell us, when you share that. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for offering the space to do that as well. But thank you so much. This has been so good. I was looking at my little notes to see if there's anything else I wanted to say. I think I hit all my questions.
Yeah, I would just like to say, if anybody is like interested, obviously Kelly McDaniel does have the book out, Mother Hunger. More than welcome to connect with me. Obviously, Sheena, you are the expert in this, so you got your girl here. If you're listening to this podcast, you got the best here. So thank you for having me, though. It's been lovely.
Yeah. Before we sign off, can you let folks know where they can find you?
So the easiest would be Instagram. It's Dr. full stop or period Piper Grant, PIPER GRANT. So that's Dr. period Piper Grant. And then my website is Numi Wellness, Numi wellness.com. And you'll
Awesome.
find me.
Yay. Thank
Thank
you. Thanks for being
you.
here.
Bye.